And we are back. Ime 4K, owner and founder of clothing label Jahuko that I started 7 years ago in university. Starting from t-shirts and printing on hoodies to now having clothes like cut and sew hoodies, cargo pants, and many more items like bags, tracksuits, bed sheets, pretty much everything you can imagine. I probably made it, but it started from a t-shirt. And I'm gonna now take you through something that I get asked quite a lot, which is what sort of suppliers are there and how do I find suppliers for clothing, for bags, etc. However, as you know, this is a new channel, so before I get into the good stuff, telling you about how to find suppliers and like what sort of suppliers there are, I need one favor from you: subscribe. It feels weird just saying that out loud, but it's gotta get done, so I'm gonna pause right now. And now you should have subscribed. You had so much time just then. I would say there are three types of suppliers out there. Personally, for me, that's how I see it. So the first one is your t-shirt and hoodie printer. Your second one is your CMT. And your third one is your FPP, which is full production packaging. So I'm going to give you my perspective on this. I'm not a professional. I have no degree in fashion or anything like that. I've just learned from trial and error, which I think is the best way to learn anything in general. By doing it and trying it, you learn from there. So here's what I've learned over the last 7 years. Starting with a t-shirt printer / hoodie printer or embroiderer, whatever you want to call it. That's probably the easiest way to get into making clothes. It's a very straightforward process. You design your item, email it to them, they print on it or embroider it onto the hoodie or t-shirt for you of your choice, and then from there send it back to you. So there's quite a few pros and cons to this. And the first one is that also it's low cost. So the cost of actually getting it done is a lot cheaper in terms of you can do just one hoodie, for example, which might be around about, let's say, to buy the hoodie, £15-20 for example. To print or embroider onto it could be, let's say, roughly around £5 to £10 per item, and then from there that's it. It's pretty much done. It's also a lot faster than doing CMT or FPP, as we'll find out later on in the video. That could take around about 7 to 14 working days to have it completed. It's a lot faster, which is great. You can get an idea turned around pretty quickly. It's also low minimums as well. There's no minimum order quantity. No, you can do a short run, or maybe let's say one hoodie just for the sample to look at it, or you can do 20, 10 or so. So it's a much more low cost investment for you if you're starting your brand, and lower risk for you if you haven't got much cash available. The other benefit of this as well is that for you as a new clothing brand owner, you may not be super aware of the kind of fabrics there are out there. What's the best fabric weight, best fabric style? Should you get a brushed interior, go for 380 GSM? Should you go for 500 GSM? If you go and buy a ready-made hoodie, you have the quality guarantee there, so you know it won't be a thing where you make a hoodie, sell it, send it out and find out, oh, it's now bobbling on the fabric, or it's a bit too thin, or so and so. So it cuts out that risk you would have had in making your own hoodie straight away. However, there are some cons to it as well. For example, if you are buying a ready-made hoodie, you are a lot more restricted now in terms of design. You can't make the hoodie length longer, for example, or make it a wider sleeve, or change the hood size itself. You are just stuck with that garment as it is. The printing supplier are also limited in where they can place the logo on the hoodie as well. You can't, for example, print over the stitching, for example, or damage the machine there as well. So there's quite a few limitations there, but for a starter item, it's still pretty good. Second con that I would say to it as well, it's a lot harder to differentiate your brand from others as well, because there was a time when, for example, everyone was using Gildan t-shirts, or everyone using a Gildan hoodie, for example. It's like everyone knows you're buying this Gildan hoodie, for example, for 4, 5, 10 quid. They know what the quality is like. They know it's just a standard hoodie, and you're just upcharging, let's say, £100 for the hoodie just to put your logo here, whereas the same person down the road has the same hoodie but put a logo here and it's charging 40 quid. It's hard to tell your customer why I should pay more money for your product then. So the perceived value of your product will go down somewhat by using blanks as well. But for a starter item, your customers will understand you are just starting out. They'll be a lot more lenient with you, but it's not a long-term thing you want to be doing. It's probably for maximum, let's say, the first 6 months to a year of starting your brand, I would say. The next one is CMT, which stands for cut, make, trim. And it's pretty much what it says. With cut, make, trim, it's a lot more hands-on. It's probably more hands-on than FPP. I wanted to make these yellow sweatpants that you can see here, with a yellow sweatpants with a black strip down the side. I thought at the time, they were pretty fire. Right now, I wouldn't know wear them, but fashion changes. With cut, make, trim, you'll need to send your tech pack to your supplier and say to them, hey, I want to make these sweatpants, for example, your measurements, the fabrics you want to use on there, logo placement, size, etc. Every single little detail you can think of to make sure when they see this graphic or this pack, they can get it as close as they can to what you want it to be in real life. So the pros is that you do now have full control over how the garment looks, feels, etc. You find the fabric, you pick out the cotton you want to use, the material you want to use, etc. The zippers, the buttons, everything is down to you. So you can now make a fully customized product, which, like I said earlier, in regards to perceived product value, it will increase the product's perceived value, because now they're saying, oh, you've actually custom made this hoodie. You can tell them why you chose to use a 480 GSM fabric over a 330 GSM fabric, why you chose to use a brushed interior cotton over a loop back interior cotton, for example. And you can start to tell customers why you're doing certain things, which builds a trust between you and the customer, as well as increase your brand's and product's perceived value as well going forward. And then the final pro I would say to doing CMT, which is somewhat of a double-edged sword, is that overall it can make the price per unit of your product cheaper than using a printing supplier to go and buy blanks and use them. However, this is now also a con at the same time, because with CMT, you do now have a minimum order quantity known as an MOQ. Your supplier will call it MOQ on emails or any conversation with them. An MOQ means that if I want to make this hoodie, for example, with a CMT supplier, they will say to me, that's fine, but you have to do minimum 50, for example. So that means that, okay, the cost in total per item may be, for example, £13 per item, which is cheaper than me doing a t-shirt printer or supplier and buying blanks. However, I have to do 50. So 50 times 30 gives you a lovely figure of 650. See that quick maths just there, yeah? I got my maths GCSE a year early. But anyway, I digress. Per unit, it works out cheaper, but the upfront cost will be a lot higher. The second con to doing a CMT is that because you are making a garment from scratch now, you're going to have to do sampling. So sampling is when you make a product, a one-off of a design, just to make sure you get the fabrics right, the fit right, etc. Make sure this is going to be your foundation to then go and make the bulk production, so your 50 units, for example. The cost of a sample will be a lot higher than making it per unit. For example, they may charge you a sample fee of, I was getting charged with my Birmingham supply around about £75 per item, just as the sample fee, plus also the cost of actually making it in bulk. So let's say the bulk was £13, it'll be £75 plus £13, plus the cost of me purchasing the materials to also make it. So it could be around about, let's say let's just say £110 for a sample, just off rip. However, what you can do to combat this is that you can get a deal with a supplier where you say, hey, if I make this sample with you and I go and make the bulk items, can I get my sample fee refunded off of my bulk cost? The reason why the sample fee is so high is that for a supplier, it's a risk to them to make this sample, because they have to set up a whole new production line for this one item. They have to say, cool, we're making these sweatpants, just one of them, which takes away from them being able to produce the bulk of another order from a different consumer they might have had that's currently ongoing. So it's about their time and their money as well. So if you can confirm to them, hey, I'm going to do the bulk, they can get a deal where you say, okay, if you do the bulk, we'll charge you basically a deposit, basically is a sample fee, or saying, cool, 75 quid right now, but if I go and make the bulk, take that money off of my bulk production cost. That's just a little trick that I would say for you to do going forward. On top of that, once the sample is done, you've confirmed the sample, you now need to get into making your patterns. So your patterns are needed for making different sizes. For example, if you do a sample in size large, you will now need to get a pattern for size medium, size small, size extra large, double XL, XS, and any other size you want to do. So then you'll also be charged for your pattern making fee to make the size for the S, M, L, XL, double XL, and so on and so forth. So it can very quickly rack up to be a high cost investment, but the overall is that if you work these costs into your production price, you can work out the retail price you need to charge to be able to make this back in profit. On top of that, if you did one colorway, for example, and you spent, let's just say, £30 per pattern and you made 4 sizes, £120. Your sample fee was £75, £195 now. Let's just call it 200 quid for one colorway. If you now go and do 2 colorways, that's now £100 per colorway. If you go and do 3, 4, 5, 6, the more colorways you do, you can start to bring down that price per unit that was costing you to go and get these patterns and samples made to be a lot less. So I'd recommend that if you get an item that you make and it does really well to sell, make it again in a new colorway. Do it again and again and again to make sure that price being coming down, 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 down. And now for the third and final type is FPP, also known as full production packaging. This is pretty much, I would equate this to like an all-inclusive holiday. It's like you say, cool, EasyJet, I'm trying to go Tenerife, I got £500 for you. I say, cool, we got the hotel sorted for you, the flights are sorted for you, you get the little taxi from the airport to the hotel, food is all sorted for you, you haven't got to lift a single finger. That is pretty much what full production package is, where you say to the supplier, hey, I want to make this hoodie, I want it to be 480 GSM, it's for the winter. They'll say, cool, what sort of fabric do you want? Okay, cool. And they will go and find the fabrics for you and show it to you. They'll go and find the zips for you and say, do you want YKK or do you want Riri? And the benefit of that is a lot less legwork for you, because back when I was doing CMT, I'm traveling up and down London to go and find buttons here, zips over here, and then package it, ship it up to Birmingham. It was a lot of legwork and took a lot of time, whereas now I moved into FPP probably around 2-3 years ago in 2022, I want to say 2021, where they now handle all of our stuff and you get a wider access to different zippers as well, because the manufacturer's got much more buying power than you as an individual when going to these warehouses to go and pick up fabrics and materials and so on. So there's quite a few pros and cons to FPP. So with FPP, one of the pros is that you're going to get expert advice. They're going to give you advice on trends and what's going on in fashion as well, and say what they recommend for you. They'll also tell you what sort of fabrics to go for or what their other customers are buying as well. When you're new in the game, you want to find out what others are doing as well and find out what the top brands are doing. So if there's a trend where everyone's buying these super heavyweight fabrics that's selling really well, they're going to say to you, hey, maybe you should try and get on this as well before it gets a little bit too late. That sort of thing there when you're starting out is really, really helpful to have on your side. Another pro as well is that you're going to learn a lot from an FPP supplier. That's where I learned the most. I spend so much time just talking to my suppliers to learn, just to go and find out, why do you guys use this fabric over this fabric, or what's a chain stitch, what's a double stitch. Like, I'm finding out all these things from them. I'll try to visit their factory and go and see them and say, hey, what's up? I want to make this. What are my options? Really and truly, the only real con to an FPP, which I wouldn't really call it a con per se, is that it is a high investment. You're looking at probably slightly higher minimums than what CMT would be, probably around the minimum 100 units, I want to say. So you need to be pretty confident that you're going to sell enough to break even and get into profit of those units, even get into FPP. Again, to give my sort of perspective on this, when I started my brand, I'm obviously UK based right now, and I was doing CMT in Birmingham. When I got into FPP, I moved all my supplying over to China, just because the price was a lot better for me over there. The quality was a lot better as well. And I was getting a lot more for my money through still using sustainable factories that meet standard regulations for health and safety and work environment conditions as well. So I would recommend going abroad for FPP, but CMT is good in the UK, and it also gave me a chance to go into factories and actually meet suppliers and start to learn a little bit in CMT suppliers as well. So yeah, that was a lot of information. I'm not gonna lie, even me, I kind of forgotten what I said, but let's just do a little recap quickly. So there are 3 types of suppliers: t-shirt and hoodie printer or embroiderer, CMT, and then your FPP. So for starting out, I'd recommend going with a t-shirt supplier or printer. For getting a bit more into cut and sew, I'd go for a CMT. If you're ready to go and start learning about fabrics, it's a great chance to go out, go to warehouses, find fabrics, source them, and start to understand the game before making that big jump to investing in FPP. I think that's quite a nice sort of method to go from printing supplier to CMT and then ending it in FPP. When you're doing bigger units, you're a bit more grounded in understanding how this production game works, and then you go from there. How do you find them? I think most people really overcomplicate the process to find a manufacturer, or maybe I'm just a very go out and do it on my own sort of person, because really and truly, you just need two things: internet and Google. Basically the same thing at this point, really. Google is how I found my first t-shirt supplier. I literally just Googled up saying t-shirt supplier, London. I found like 5, went to go and visit a few of them just to go and find out how it works, the process there. And from there, I picked my favorite one that I thought had the best price, gave me the best information, seemed the most friendly. And that was pretty much it. Unless you get really, 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 really unlucky, the standard for printing on tees is pretty high and across most suppliers in the UK, so you're gonna be fine. However, one tip I would say is try and find one outside of London, just because similar to housing prices, the cost of doing stuff in London is a lot higher than going out to somewhere like a Birmingham or a Nottingham or outside London. So if you can try and find one outside London, you'd be a lot better off in your pricing as well. If you want to find a CMT or FPP supplier and make into a more customizable and more complex sort of garment, it's a pretty similar process to finding your original t-shirt and hoodie printer or embroiderer. It's a Google search. Google it. For UK ones, I would say you can Google them pretty easily. Same for ones in like Portugal and around Europe. If you want to go into Asia and go for a much more cheaper sort of pricing and get a wider range of stuff, you're going to want to go on Alibaba. I was a little bit skeptical about Alibaba and just producing things internationally because I got done quite dirty around 4 or 5 years ago by a supplier in India, which I'll give that story time another day. But I got into using suppliers abroad again a few years ago, and it's been great. Alibaba is great. You have the trade assurance checks. You can check their reviews as well and make sure they're actually solid and they've been doing stuff for a while. You can get a pretty good price, and all your payments are secured through Alibaba or through PayPal. So those are your 3 main suppliers you need to be aware of for the first, let's say, 3 years of starting your brand, going from a t-shirt hoodie printer into CMT into FPP and then growing from there. I'm going to do a video about how to actually communicate with these suppliers next, about talking with them, what to send them, what to look out for, how to build a strong and growing bond with them as well that will benefit you as a business owner going forward. So make sure you subscribe below so you don't miss out on when I give more tips and tricks on building your brand, finding a supplier, and getting the ball rolling here.